On the night of July 5, 2025, Birmingham seemed to breathe as if it were the center of the universe. The legendary Villa Park Stadium, home of Aston Villa, was filled with more than 40,000 fans beating as one heart. It was Ozzy Osbourne's farewell to the stage, and the last reunion of the original Black Sabbath lineup since 2005. Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward joined him, closing a cycle that had begun decades earlier in that very same city. Marked by the advance of Parkinson's, Ozzy appeared on stage seated on a throne adorned with bats, a symbol as theatrical as his own legacy. His eyes shone, not with weakness, but with a rare strength only those who have lived every note and every cheer to the fullest can possess. The event, called Back to the Beginning, was not just a concert. It was a 10-hour celebration of music, bringing together giants like Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Slayer, Tool, Pantera, Alice in Chains, Hailstorm, Lamb of God, Anthrax, and Mastodon, along with supergroups formed by living legends such as Slash, Duff McKagan, Tom Morello, Billy Corgan, Lizzie Hale, Jake E. Lee, and David Draymond. Between 42,000 and 45,000 people filled the stadium with energy, while live broadcasts reached millions around the world. All profits, about $140 million, would go to institutions such as Acorns Children's Hospice, Birmingham Children's Hospital, and the Cure Parkinson's Trust, proof that even in farewell, Ozzy turned music into love and solidarity. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel now. Here, every video is more than music or stories. It's memory, emotion, and legacy. If you love moments that stir the soul, that preserve history and make you feel part of it, this is the place for you. By subscribing, you ensure you'll never miss the stories that connect music, life, and eternity. When the final song ended and fireworks lit up the sky, Ozzy didn't just smile, he exhaled. He knew that every second on stage had cost more than the audience could ever imagine. The emotion of "Mama, I'm coming home" and "Paranoid" still echoed, but backstage, the weight of reality pressed heavily on his shoulders. His body could no longer keep up. Days later, at home on the porch of his Buckinghamshire mansion, Ozzy stared at the grey sky while Sharon busied herself in the kitchen. The sadness was dense. He knew the goodbye had arrived, but his heart still didn't want to leave. There has to be a way to keep going, he thought. He had the money to try experimental treatments, maybe extend his career another 5 or 10 years. He reached for his phone to call Zakk Wylde, who always had some wild idea, but his hand failed him. He called out for Sharon, and no one answered. "Why are you shouting, Ozzy?" said a voice beside him. He turned and froze. He had to be crazy. It was impossible. I died, didn't I?" he whispered. "No, Ozzy. You're still here in your house. Everything's fine." "Then what the hell are you doing here?" he replied, almost in shock. "Aren't you happy to see me, my old friend? It's been so long," said Randy Rhoads, smiling. Ozzy blinked in disbelief. "If this were real, I'd be happy. But if I'm not dead, then I must be in the final deliriums of my long life." Randy stepped closer. "I'm here to make you an offer. I'm putting a band together. The train leaves for the other side. All you have to do is say yes. Over there, there's no time, no pressure. Eternal shows every day, millions of fans waiting. Hendrix, Lemmy, Bonham, Dio, they're all there. And you, Ozzy, are the missing piece." The Prince of Darkness took a deep breath. Part of him burned with the desire to accept, but another part wanted a few more chords on this side of life. "Give me a few days, Randy. I need to think. I'm not ready to decide." Randy's smile faded slightly, but his eyes stayed kind. "I'll come back for your answer, and when I do, it will be time to board." He took 2 steps back and in the blink of an eye disappeared. The days that followed were ones of silent penance. Ozzy spent hours alone on the porch, staring at the horizon as if searching for signs of a world only he could see. At night, old songs echoed in his mind, mingled with memories of stages, applause, and friends long gone. Part of him wanted to get on that train and play forever with those who had passed. Another part wanted to cling to his family, try some form of treatment, gather old bandmates, and maybe, just maybe, hit the road again, even if only for a short while. And so, caught between the temptation of eternity and the call of the present, Ozzy waited. Hours passed slowly, as if the world outside had forgotten to turn. Sometimes he wondered if that conversation had really happened, or if it was nothing more than a delirium fed by exhaustion and pain. On certain nights, He swore he could smell a distant fragrance, hear a soft echo of guitar strings that could only come from the other side. But when he opened his eyes, it all dissolved into the silence of the night. Ozzy no longer knew if he was losing his mind or if Randy truly would return, and if he did, Ozzy didn't know if he would have the courage to give him the answer he wanted. Then, on a grey morning, he called Sharon to talk. His voice was weaker now, but carried a strange weight. He told her about the encounter with Randy Rhoads, about the invitation to join a band in the afterlife, and about the train that would leave for a place where time didn't exist. Sharon, worried, listened in silence. Later, Ozzy managed to reach out to Zakk Wylde, his brother in music, and repeated the story. Both Sharon and Zakk were moved and scared. To them, it was obvious Ozzy was slipping away. His mental faculties were failing, and the man who had survived so many storms was now speaking nonsense. An encounter with Randy Rhoads, a band in the afterlife, it could only be the product of a mind overtaken by the relentless advance of dementia. But what no one knew was that it wasn't that at all. Randy was there, real, present. The story about forming the band was true, and so was the invitation. But for it to happen, Ozzy would have to let go of this earthly life and embrace the eternal. And if he didn't, they would find another musician. That wouldn't be hard, considering the insane and self-destructive pace so many rockers live by. And so, Ozzy remained trapped at the cruelest crossroads of his life. With one foot in eternity and the other in the little time he had left, he knew that soon he would have to choose, and deep down, he feared the day of that choice was much closer than he imagined. That same night, Sharon and Zakk sat in the living room, lit only by the glow of the fireplace. Ozzy had gone to bed early, claiming he was exhausted. From the bedroom came a heavy silence, broken only by the occasional murmur of him talking to himself, or at least that's how it seemed. "He's never talked like this before," Sharon said, her voice trembling. "He's getting worse fast, Zakk." Zakk, his gaze hardened by years on the road, looked down at the floor. "I know the madman, Sharon. He wouldn't make up a story like this without reason. But," he took a deep breath, struggling with the words, "if this isn't delirium, then it's something we can't explain." Sharon clasped her hands, as if trying to hold on to something slipping away. "And what if it's just the illness? What if it's the end?" Zakk looked at her, the firelight reflecting in his eyes like embers about to fade. "Then we stay with him until the last chord." As they spoke, neither noticed the subtle change in the air. The warmth of the fireplace seemed to mix with a cold breeze that came from nowhere. In the shadows, behind the slightly open door, a figure stood motionless, the outline of a light jacket, slightly wavy blonde hair and a golden glint in the eyes. Randy Rhoads watched them in silence, not like a dark ghost, but like a friend waiting. He didn't need to speak. He simply brushed his hand over the sleeve of his jacket, as if holding a ticket that had yet to be used, and disappeared into the darkness of the hallway. In the bedroom, Ozzy opened his eyes. He smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly, as if sensing the presence. Maybe he knew his time was running out. Maybe he understood that the train wouldn't wait forever. And so the entire house sank into silence, a silence heavy with questions no one dared to ask, and with answers perhaps better left unknown. 2 days passed, and they felt like a silent exile for Ozzy. He spent hours sitting on the porch, his body hunched under a heavy blanket, staring at the horizon without truly seeing it. The grey sky over Buckinghamshire felt like an extension of his own state of mind. Heavy, impenetrable, cold. Sometimes in the distance, the sound of a bird reminded him of touring days, of the hum of airplanes carrying him from city to city. Other times, the simple creak of the house's wooden beams transported him to an old dressing room, where Randy would tune his guitar with that focused look only true musicians have. In those moments, Ozzy would close his eyes and almost catch the scent of leather jackets, cigarette smoke mingled with sweat, and metal warmed under stage lights. At night, the torment was greater. He would wake in the middle of the night, the room bathed in a bluish haze, and swear he heard loose guitar notes coming from somewhere in the house. They weren't ordinary chords. They were fragments only Randy could play. The melody came softly, as if calling him to follow the music to its end, but when he got up to look, he found only an empty hallway, the quiet house, and the echo of his own breathing. On a cloudy afternoon, Ozzy decided to write. He grabbed a notepad and began scribbling song titles, band lineups and setlist ideas. But his hand trembled so much that the words warped on the page, turning into almost indecipherable scrawls. The letters seemed to dance before his eyes, the cruel result of Parkinson's relentless advance. Still, he pressed on, fighting against weakness to put down what might be his final project. In the corner of the page, he painstakingly wrote, "Train to the other side." When he reread it, he sat in silence for long minutes. The words carried a strange weight, as if they hadn't come entirely from him. It was then that Sharon entered the room. She approached slowly, gently took the notepad, and looked at her husband. "Love, I've been thinking," she said, her voice both soft and steady. "If it's your choice, if it will bring you peace, I'll let you go. Go live your dream. Go find Randy. You never got over losing that great friend. And if this story about starting a band with him is really true, I give you my blessing. Go, my love. I'll suffer, but I'll know you'll be happy wherever you are. And if you're with Randy, I'm sure it will be nothing but joy and good music every single day. Go, my love. Don't worry about us. You've left us comfortable. We have enough for many generations. We won't be left unprotected." Ozzy felt a knot in his throat. Part of him wanted to say yes right then, but another part clung desperately to what little time he had left in this life. Sharon discreetly wiped away a tear, leaned in and kissed his forehead, like an early farewell. In that moment, Ozzy realized the decision he needed to make was no longer just his, but also Time's. And Time, cruel and unforgiving, was almost ready to demand its answer. In the early hours between July 21st and July 22nd, 2025, Ozzy was still awake. The house slept, but he couldn't close his eyes. He wore a black jacket with silver details, the same one he had worn in a memorable show with Randy Rhoads back in the 80s. Sitting in the armchair on the porch, the icy air cut at his skin, but he didn't feel cold. He was simply waiting. Then, without the sound of footsteps or doors, a presence filled the space. Randy was there, not as a memory or shadow, but solid, real, with the same youth and energy he had the day he left. The white guitar rested on his back, and his smile carried both longing and urgency. "It's time, madman," Randy said, his voice gentle but firm. "I need your answer." Ozzy didn't hesitate. "I'm going with you. I've got nothing left to prove here. And you know, I never wanted our last tour to actually be the last." Randy nodded, his expression a mix of joy and understanding. "Then get ready. We won't be long." In the next few minutes, Ozzy walked into the bedroom. Sharon was awake, perhaps sensing what was about to happen. He sat beside her, held her hand, and smiled. "Love, it's time." The tears fell before she could even answer. She held him tightly, as if trying to keep him from leaving, but simply said, "Go, and play like it's the first time." Back on the porch, Randy was waiting. The cold breeze grew stronger, carrying with it the distant sound of applause and chords. By the gate, an old black locomotive, wrapped in mist, stood ready. There were no tracks, only a path lit by a golden glow on the horizon. Ozzy gave one last look at the house, at Sharon standing in the doorway, and stepped into the carriage. Randy, already with his guitar in hand, smiled. "Welcome to eternity, partner." On the morning of July 22nd, 2025, the headlines confirmed what the world had feared. Ozzy Osbourne had passed away peacefully during the night, at age 76, at home, surrounded by his family. For the fans, it was the end of an era. For those who knew the story, it was only the beginning of a show that would never end. And so Ozzy departed. The moment the train passed through the curtain of golden mist, he felt the weight of his body vanish. The pain was gone, the tremor had ceased, and the rigidity Parkinson's had imposed on him for years evaporated like smoke. His hands were steady, his breathing light, and his body restored to the strength of his youth, ready to run, scream, and sing without limits. The air smelled of aged wood and freshly changed guitar strings. As he stepped off, a vast arena unfolded before him, lit by eternal lights. On stage, Jimi Hendrix strummed softly, Lemmy tuned his bass, Bonham tested the drums, and Dio, arms open, greeted him with a smile. Randy Rhoads stepped forward, extended his hand, and said, "Welcome to the show that never ends, partner." And to the sound of applause that seemed to come from every corner of the universe, Ozzy stepped onto the stage, ready for the first chord of eternity. Friends, This has been a tribute to the great Ozzy Osbourne, who left us only recently, and to his eternal friend Randy Rhoads, who left far too soon but lives on in all our memories. And now I want to hear from you. What is your favorite Ozzy song? What was the most unforgettable moment of his career for you? And if you had the chance to watch him and Randy perform together, what song would you ask them to play? Thank you so much for watching until the end, and for keeping alive a story that goes beyond music. It's about friendship, loyalty, and the eternity of rock. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, share it with other fans, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming stories. The stage may have gone dark here, but on the other side, the show goes on.